Thanks all for joining us. Good afternoon. Welcome to February's IncubatorCTX speaker series. My name is Kristen Spindler, and I'm the director of IncubatorCTX and a faculty member here at Concordia. The format for today's webinar will be about 40 minutes of panel discussion, and we'll save the rest of the hour for questions. So if you have a question, please type it in the chat and address your question to all panelists and attendees, and we'll be monitoring the chat for questions. Today's topic is artificial intelligence. AI is a powerful technology that's transforming business, education, and government. Did you know that according to CIO magazine, about 75% of enterprises have a budget for either machine learning or artificial intelligence in 2021? Before we get started here, we just wanted to gauge the audience. So I'm gonna launch a poll, and if you could all answer this, it will give us an idea. So I wanna learn about artificial intelligence to apply it to my business, education, government, or I'm not interested in learning about AI. Okay, so we have about 59% interested in learning about AI for business, 32% for education, 5% for government, and 5% I'm not interested in learning about AI at all. Okay, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our panel. We have Colonel Andy Pennington. He is an adjunct professor in computer science at Concordia University, Texas, and an artificial intelligence machine learning strategist at Global Infotek. And he's going to moderate our panel today. We're also pleased to welcome Dr. Niu and Dr. Zhang from the University of Texas at San Antonio. Dr. Niu is the Interim Academic Director of the School of Data Science. And as a Microsoft President's Endowed Professor, some of her current research is focusing on cybersecurity, data privacy policies, and enforcement, particularly related to healthcare. Dr. Zhang is an Associate Professor in the Computer Science Department, and his research includes database systems and data privacy. Next slide, please. So the idea of this webinar came about a few months ago as Concordia was revamping its computer science program. Students at Concordia who study computer science approach the subject from a multidisciplinary approach. And the program focuses on good communication skills, which are emphasized in every course, a business view of computer science, including courses with software development, a new concentration in data science, and practical experience in the way of mandatory internships before graduation. Artificial intelligence is one of the courses that CTX students take as undergraduates. Concordia, as you know, doesn't currently offer graduate degrees in computer science, and that's why we're so lucky today to have partnered with UT San Antonio, who will be able to talk also about some of what they're doing at the graduate level. So let's give a warm welcome to Colonel Pennington and Dr. Niu and Dr. Zhang. So if you guys can raise your hands or give high fives and your emojis, that would be great. And let's welcome them. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy Pennington, and he's going to give us a brief overview of what AI is and what machine learning is. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you very much. Okay, let me jump right into this. At the end of this panel discussion, what we're hoping that you'll do is that you'll learn a lot more about artificial intelligence and the areas that Kristen just spoke to of education and in government and also in the commercial sector are all going to be addressed today. So that should be your takeaway at the end of this. And if you have any questions, we are more than happy to entertain those at the end. So please take notes as we're going along in our initial discussion. And when the panel opens up, the whole idea is for you to jump in there and ask some questions with us as well. So what I'd like to start off with here is a slide that we have simply that talks about some of the positive expectations of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of hope and a lot of promise in AI, and there's also some negative expectations. We're trying to figure out where the balance is in that. And that's a kind of an interesting thing that's happening right now because the technology is still maturing. A researcher at MIT, he's rather famous in the field of AI, is a fellow by the name of Patrick Henry Winston. And he's a guy that has studied anthropology as well as studying technology. And he also focuses a lot on communications. At Concordia University, we stress communications heavily in the artificial or in the technology programs in computer science. And those dovetail into the whole artificial intelligence course that is taught there as well. The bottom line that Dr. Winston came up with is that success in communications yields to success at work. And there's a function that he has that is a function of how much you know, your knowledge, how much you practice, and what your inherent talent is. And we can kind of see that here in the picture. You know, how successful would have Luke Skywalker been if it hadn't been for R2-D2 and C-3PO helping him out as virtual assistants? What he was able to do is to leverage artificial intelligence to enhance his knowledge. The other thing he did is we know that he practiced and practiced and practiced with his craft. He had an inherent or innate talent to be a Jedi Knight, if you're familiar with Star Wars. But he wasn't any good at it till he hooked up with Yoda. And one of the hopes that we have for artificial intelligence is that it won't just supplant us as an intelligence. That's not what we're looking for. What we're hoping for is it will work beside it as humans, and that it will work together with us to make us better people and to make us more successful. The dark side of this, of course, which would be the negative expectations, is that what happens if it does supplant us? What would that look like? And there's a lot of popular fiction out there, from the Terminator. We've got Battlestar Galactica here, where the whole universe gets blown up. We've got good old Captain Marvel's nemesis, the artificial intelligence that took her on. Basically, science fiction loves to talk about artificial intelligence and how it can do that. But the fact of the matter is, that's a type of artificial intelligence that we reference as general AI, and we're just not there yet. It'll be a long time before we get to general AI. And right now, there's a lot of groundbreaking work being done, some of it by my colleagues here at UTSA, that are looking at data science merging with the field of ethics to make sure that AI is developed in an ethical manner. And that's just a crucial thing to do. Before I get into this next slide, I want to tell you just a brief story about a fellow. He's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army, and he lives here with me in Lago Vista in the same community. And his name's Mike Gray. And I've had the pleasure of doing a lot of Taekwondo work with Mike. He's always been my mentor. Mike is about 62, 63 years of age. Probably shouldn't give away his age, but you wouldn't normally associate a fellow of that age with being very successful in a sport such as Taekwondo, where there's a lot of younger folks. But what Mike did, I got to watch him in a tournament. We were at a tournament basically where we were above the state level, and we were competing with people from many different states. And I'll just put it succinctly, is that Mike just kicked everybody's rear end, literally, in Taekwondo, of course. And the way he was able to do that was he was able to leverage his knowledge. And we talked before about that function of knowledge and how much you practice and what your innate talent is. Mike and I were kind of joking that innate talent after you're in your mid-50s tends to decline just a little bit, whether you like it or not. It's just a little bit harder to move. But Mike was able to tap into knowledge. He was a little bit older. He knew when to attack, when not to attack. He'd been trained throughout his Army career of warfare, and he knew everything about how to size up an opponent and how to tackle any specific problem. So when we're looking at AI and we're looking at that function of increasing knowledge, it works the same way that it worked for Mike. Mike was successful, and he won not only the state of Texas in all categories, but he also went up above that at the national level and won as well. And again, he did that primarily based on the knowledge that he gleaned and how he applied that to the basic talents that he had, and particularly just his physical capabilities at that time. And he practiced like crazy. So we have to be able to do that too. And to do that with an artificial intelligence, we have to apply it across a very, very, very broad spectrum. And that's what this particular slide shows, is how broad, really broad, the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning is. If you look at this slide, I'm surely not trying to get you to memorize it or read every little detail on it, but you'll notice that artificial intelligence is just one of the subsets that are within that, or I should say containers that contain subsets of machine learning, which is unsupervised, supervised, reinforcement learning. Those are activities that take place within AI. And then there's all these other fields that it interfaces with, including how your data architecture is constructed. For instance, what you would have within a business to support your AI infrastructure. And then also the data science itself, which is all of the hardcore number crunching and the algorithms that are developed that Dr. Zhang will speak to in a few minutes. So there's a lot technically, I want to emphasize that there's a lot technically about AI that we could cover, but that's not the purpose of our discussion today. Today, we're going to focus about what the impact of AI is on society. So we do want to stress, however, the importance of data, and that's why Dr. Zhang will have his opportunity to talk a little bit more in depth in a few minutes about what they're doing at UTSA and how important data science is and where that fits in the picture. In particular with data, as we're seeing it here on this little cartoon, the petroleum of the 21st century, we have to be concerned with how can we get access to the data, who owns it? What was that data originally intended for, and can we get it? Can startups compete in the field of AI with the big tech companies that already own all the data, such as Google, or even large firms that are multinationals like Exxon that can gather data from all over? And when does it make sense to share data between companies so that they have a mutual advantage without ruining their competitive advantage? Also, we have to be very, very concerned about data security and privacy. And Dr. Niu will be addressing that a little bit later on in the presentation as well in more detail. Last of all, we have to be concerned about whether or not access to data is a source of strategic advantage. And in some points, for some firms, that is definitely the case, and others it's not. I'll get into that in a little bit more detail toward the end of the presentation as well. The other things that comprise artificial intelligence, as well as data has to be crunched, so we have to have algorithms developed, and that's a very important subfield. We also deal with the fact that in artificial intelligence, once the algorithms and the data are combined, the way artificial intelligence works is the same way humans work. Sometimes you get different results. I can input the same amount, the exact same data into 4 different technical experts that are human and get 4 different results. With AI and machine learning, we also have uncertainties and unpredictability as well. So you're not always going to get an optimum solution until until the data is fully executed, till there's been training with machine learning, and then you can build higher and higher confidence in the solution. But you won't always get the same results. And because of that, we know that AI can fail. Now, there's a couple of different reasons. The UC Berkeley School of Business has identified 3 of them here that are salient. The first is that AI is not quite ready yet for the task in general. It's just not able to do what people expect it to do most of the time on a consistent basis. Or the technology itself is just not mature and cannot be applied to that specific task. Another thing is that AI is not ready for corner cases, so it's unable to handle changing conditions or context that are thrown at it when you're loading the data into the system. And when we talk about corner cases, if you think of like just a bubble that you could be looking at where you have a bunch of different cases that are occurring, one might appear on the outside. It might be an outlier or fringe out there. What do you do when that outlier goes into the algorithm and is already trying to be fit so that you get a result that's consistent with the stuff that normally appears on the inside of the bubble? We can talk a little bit later on about the different methods of machine learning and the way that those process data, some of the statistical algorithms, and some of the ways that we can actually do predictions as well as just come up with a straightforward analysis that will give you a straightforward result as what you should expect to have occur given a specific set of data. The bottom line bullet here is that AI is generally could be generally ready, but it was deployed the wrong way, or it might have been hacked even after it was deployed. And we are beginning to see a lot more efforts, particularly in the field of cybersecurity, that are focused on hacking AI. And that's actually my field, what I do, cybersecurity applications for AI. But we're also focused on the way that people can actually feed it data on purpose to get it to produce negative results. Remember that old idea, garbage in, garbage out. So the next thing we'll take a look at then, that's pretty much the summary of the introduction slides. And I'd like to talk just very briefly about the impact of AI on education, and then Dr. Niu will have an opportunity to talk about her programs down at UTSA. So the bottom line is that a lot of experts have gotten together and looked at AI and what it's going to do to the workforce, and then backed off from that and said, okay, well, now what do we need to change in education to prepare that workforce? One of the key things that they came up with is to make education broader. And the reason why is because they feel that as AI increases in prevalence in the workplace, it will gradually be taking over more and more jobs. And the more simpler the job is, the easier it is for an AI to take on that task. So what the idea is for education is to prepare people for more than one job. Traditionally, under the old Victorian age focus of education, we focused on reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's still critical. Nobody's saying that's not going to still be needed. That's a fundamental thing we have to understand. But one of the things we really have to focus on with AI is that an AI will be able to do a lot of those things for you. I remember when the first calculator appeared in my classroom when I was in high school, and I was like, whoa, that would be kind of nice. Everybody suddenly had calculators. And of course, the teachers were teaching us to hide those things under the desk and saying we couldn't use them. Now we have computers everywhere, and even our phones with the computing capabilities. We have a symbiotic relationship with that device. And that's where we're going to be going with AI. So if we think of the capabilities of what an AI can do in the future, just think of what we have to know to be able to use that device. And that's one form of education. And then number two, let's figure out what the limitation of that device is and where will humans fit into that picture to go beyond. And that's what these three sub-bullets talk about. The idea of creation of new ideas, that's something AIs aren't really great at right now. And it'll probably be a while before they can really tackle that. So working on ideation in the education environment and learning how to foster that is critical. The next thing is pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is kind of critical. That's one of the things that AIs can do, but they're not great at yet. And then finally, complex communication. And what I'd like to focus on there before I switch it over to Dr. Niu is the idea of storytelling. And one of the things that human beings have done throughout our existence is we focused on the idea of telling stories to communicate. For instance, if I were to talk to Ms. Spindler here and say, Kristen, do you remember the time that we drove into Concordia University and it was snowy like crazy? Suddenly, Kristen will get into her mind an image of her last trip into Concordia, the last time it snowed really bad here in Austin, and what the impact of that was on our operations. She'll begin to dovetail into, okay, we're probably going to close the school. We're probably going to do this. We have to be careful when we're walking around out there. There's a whole lot of things that come to her just by the conveyance of a story. With an artificial intelligence, you don't have that capability. So there's an old adage or an old example that we can use when we're talking about AI. It's okay, let's say that I want to shake hands with Dr. Niu. So you say, okay, Andy shook hands with Dr. Niu. Now the question is, okay, I can then say, did Andy touch Dr. Niu? All right, as a human being, that's a simple thing. We shook hands, so we touched. A computer, think of how you would have to code that into it to explain to the computer that there was actually a physical touch by virtue of the fact that we said we shook hands. It's a very simple thing to us, but to a computer, there's a lot more complex just to convey that information. So the last bullet here is that we'll need to have lifelong learning in these areas because we're going to have to constantly evolve as the AIs evolve, and keep in mind they're going to be evolving very quickly. So with that in mind, UTSA has set up their program in data science to support that. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Niu and let her explain what they're doing to support these new fields. Dr. Niu?
Hi, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Kristen, for inviting me to present the UTSA program. I'd like to share my slides. I am a professor of computer science. I still like that title the most, especially I know the audience for today are students from computer science department and then other friends. So the big picture you see at the background, that's our new school data science and a national collaboration National Security Collaboration Center. 2 entities will be co-located in downtown area. So the new building will be ready in 2 years. So we are so excited about it. So we believe the new physical space in downtown will help us to really propel the advancement of data science. So the school data science was created, approved 2 years ago. The goal is to centralize UTSA's talent and resources in artificial intelligence and machine learning, computer science, information science, statistics, and data analytics under one innovative roof. So we really want to collaborate. We really want to foster radical innovation and then solve today's grand challenges in the community. So the new physical space is located at the heart of the tech corridor. Will propel the advancement of school data science. And then we believe it will be a big success for both research and education for UTSA and for San Antonio. So you see that the School of Data Science currently has 5 academic departments, as well as multiple research centers and institutes affiliated with the school data science. In particular, the school data science offers many advanced academic programs. In particular here, we offer master's program in computer science with data science concentration. And then Dr. Zhang is the first person established data science concentration on UTSA campus. We have cybersecurity science. It's a new degree program just launched in the fall 2020. We have our like well-known MSDA, Masters of Science in Data Analytics, Masters of Science in Information Technology, as well as Statistics and Data Science. The 2 new forthcoming programs, one is Masters of Science in Artificial Intelligence across all 3 departments, Computer Science, ECE, and Information Systems and Cybersecurity. Also, we are producing the new Data Science program. So we also have a bunch of doctoral programs for the school data science. We have more than 250 Ph.D. students, and then we do offer a lot of certificate programs. So, you know, the rapid development of artificial intelligence and their applications have made it possible to include data science technology, AI, into many disciplines, such as the natural sciences, engineering, defense and security, social sciences, business, just to name a few. So you may have heard companies like Google, Amazon, and then the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, USAA in San Antonio. They all kind of voice strongly, hey, they rely on AI and data science to make decisions and then to address critical challenges. So you see there is an industry and a societal need for more professionals who are prepared to take on the data science challenges we are currently facing today. So in order to address the needs, we created the new graduate data science certificate. It's a fully online certificate. It comprises 5 courses, 15 credit hours, and we built this program in collaboration with 3 colleges: College of Business, College of Engineering, College of Sciences at UTSA. You see that we approach this problem also using multidisciplinary studies. So because we strongly believe both AI and data science are interdisciplinary in nature, okay? So we really hope we can fill the need of the society, of the workforce, by offering students the courses that they can gain foundational knowledge and skills in data science, that can be applied in a variety of disciplines. So the certificate will provide a gateway for students across all disciplines to gain data science experience, to gain AI technology skills. So we designed the certificate so that it can complement existing degree programs, as well as you can take the certificate as a non-degree seeking special student. So it provides you the most flexible schedule to complete the certificate. We will build a workforce that is data savvy by studying multiple fields. Okay, so that's our new data science certificate. If you want to know more about the certificate, you can reach out to me or Dr. Zhang. We will launch the certificate in March 22nd. I believe it's the first day. This is an 8-week program. Dr. Zhang is going to offer the programming for data science, and then Dr. Robertson is going to offer the introduction to data science course. You can take 2 courses, you can take a single course, and then you will complete the certificate in probably, say, 24 weeks. So half a year, you can complete all 5 courses. So besides the intro and the programming course, students will take data organization and visualization course, will take the machine learning and data mining course, as well as a statistics course. As I said, we want to propel the advancement in data science and AI in both education and research. So definitely data science is the most important pillar. So it will create new knowledge from large volume of diverse data generated in our society. And then we need to communicate the results through impactful visualization, and then we will render the results, and then we will really need to make decisions based on the analysis results. AI, UTSA has very strong expertise in AI, in particular applying AI in health analytics, in security, as well as the neuromorphic AI systems and architectures. Health analytics, so we have very strong expertise in health analytics. We really have built strong collaboration between UTSA and UT Health. So we try to address a lot of problems in the health domain, including how to interpret the medical image using data science and machine learning, how to like advance bioinformatics, and the data privacy is something that I'm very interested in. Also, UTSA is famous for the cloud computing program as well. We have built collaboration with local industries, government, the federal government and local government, and then really to advance cloud computing and then leverage cloud computing in many different fields. So I will just stop here.
Okay. So just a couple of questions right now. Let's take a quick look at this slide. This particular slide came from a couple of researchers, economists, who wrote a book called The Second Machine Age that deals with artificial intelligence. And what the slide shows is kind of interesting. Dr. Niu and Dr. Zhang, I'd like to get your input on it. It shows that the median income per capita has roughly been rather flat. If you look at this slide, it goes all the way from 1960 to 2010, particularly for the last 10 or 12 years that were covered in this slide. The median income per capita per person stayed relatively flat and even decreased. And that, doing a little supplemental research, hasn't changed up until 2020. Meanwhile, the economists have noted that there's been significant GDP growth during that time per capita. So the overall conclusion is that wealth is increasing, but wages for non-tech workers, people that are doing jobs that we would describe as less skilled jobs, such as assembly jobs, factory type work, that type of thing, has remained relatively the same or even decreased. So my question for you has to do with the nature of the programs. You had mentioned that your programs, these are for technical people, and it looks like the technical jobs will be going up. What type of input would you have for people who are not in the tech sector to actually be able to participate in the fields of AI, data science as well, so that they can take advantage of the growth and not be left out? Dr. Niu, do you have any thoughts on that?
Definitely. I know whenever we talk about AI or data science, people believe, hey, if I don't know computer science, if I don't have a strong background in higher level math, I won't be able to do it. Now, in particular, so many tools have been made available for you out of the basically shelf. So you can, with some knowledge of, for instance, Python, not necessarily you'll be a proficient programmer, but if you have some knowledge, you will be able to use those tools. And then I believe, no matter you're going to apply it to social science, to health, medical domain, or any domain of your interest, you will benefit of it. That's why, again, I'm wearing my interim director hat. I think the certificate we just developed, ground up, will provide you such opportunity, because when we design a certificate, we do not assume students have any computer science background, have any, like say, statistic background. We design the certificate in a way so you can gain the fundamental knowledge as well as the skills after taking the 5 courses.
So for instance, a standard business major could jump into your program and get that certificate and do quite well.
Yes, even like, for instance, a liberal arts major, they can do it.
Mm-hmm. Are there any particular fields that you would say would be targeted right now that should go for that certificate? Anything that's hot in the market?
So the market definitely, after taking the 5 courses, you cannot become the data scientist. However, you can become the data analyst. So you can apply data science, AI, machine learning to the domains that can help to make decisions in that domain, can help to advance whatever their business goals. Yes.
Excellent. Dr. Zhang, a quick question for you. We know that we talked before about how data is critical with artificial intelligence, basically the old garbage in, garbage out, as I'd mentioned before. In the terms of preparing the data, there's activities of data cleaning, data labeling, things like that, that are regular, somewhat rote type of activities. Do you see any, would those activities be appropriate for people to retrain in if they're in a less skilled workforce, or are there other activities similar to that? What do you see in that area?
Yeah, so there are a lot of the tools in some systems like Python, like MATLAB, right? So if for people who already have data, a little bit of training, maybe taking some courses like the certificate course that can help them to use the tool to clean the data, to collecting the data, transform data, visualize data, okay? So the tools and the skills are there, and just need some additional training, okay? So that's why we actually designed this certificate program, and at the graduate level. So the people has to know something about the data. You have to know the content, the semantics, the meaning of the data, and have some idea how the data will be used. And then to use the tool to get the data to the point that you can analyze it and get some useful insight of the data, and try to make business decisions.
Well, I know that UTSA has worked very closely with, for instance, Alamo Community College, perhaps Austin Community College District, for people who are going for the 2-year degree programs. Where would you see them fitting into this picture as well?
So actually, we developed also the undergraduate certificate. So the undergraduate data science certificate can be a good fit for those community college students. As well, actually, especially for this audience, the Department of Computer Science, now I'm wearing my other hat, Professor of Computer Science. We, as a department, took a lot of students from community college. And then during the summer, usually we provide something called Jumpstart Workshop. So it's like we use the opportunity to prepare the students for the computer science curriculum. And then, as Dr. Zhang said, the Department of Computer Science also has the master's program. We have master's in computer science. We have master's in cybersecurity science. Also, we have multiple concentrations within those 2 degree programs. That data science program is so different from the data science programs Dr. John and I talked about, because that one is designed for students with strong computer science background. That teach students about developing data science algorithms, the AI algorithms, techniques, tools to tackle the new talent challenges.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Well, that's good, because now we've kind of looked at the community colleges. Concordia and UTSA are both already into artificial intelligence and offering data science courses at the undergraduate level, and you folks are definitely hammering it at the graduate levels and postgraduate levels. What about some of the non-skilled workers, the people who are in trades? One of the fields of artificial intelligence that's gained a lot of attention lately has been robotics. And we saw that recently when one of the large automakers moved into robotics. They eliminated 48% of their workforce. And that was a bit of a concern, of course, to the United Auto Workers Union. What do we see happening to help workers like that who are displaced? What are there any programs out there in the unskilled area that have already worked for people or that are being thought of? What's happening?
That's a great question. I know in particular, because of the COVID, a lot of people were impacted, not just like the auto workers, right? So in order to address this kind of continuing education need, UTSA is developing some programs. And then we expect those people will be retrained so that they can be competitive again on the job market. But I know a lot of people will be impacted by AI, by robotics, by the advancement in technology. But I don't think it's the end of the world. For every revolution, right, you will see it. So now we are in the fourth of maybe the fifth revolution. So we just need to be prepared to be flexible as an educator to address any needs we need to. It's part of our job.
Yeah, we've seen historically, I mean, we know even back in the 1880s when the factories were becoming more prevalent, there's a lot of old empty buildings that were back in the small towns back in the days where people moved into the factories. And then I think one of the other allegories not allegories, but one of the other stories I really like is about Henry Ford. And basically when Ford began to automate and everyone moved toward the factories, there was a big concern about the pay disparity. And one of the things is that Ford started paying people at a rate that was pretty much equivalent to what they had in the agriculture sector, which is where a lot of those workers migrated from. But I think one of the real issues was that when that took place, the amount that a consumer was willing to pay for a car and the efficiency that was gained by creating the factory pretty much determined the amount of money that was left over to pay the workers. And one of the questions that's arisen in artificial intelligence is that we may not see a dynamic that allows employers to pay their workers a median wage or a reasonable wage unless they have these AI skills. Would you agree with that?
I'm kind of agree. Not necessarily just AI skills, but it's technology in general.
Yeah. So basically, if you don't do it, you're going to be left out.
Not even if not now, it will be probably in 10 years.
Yeah. Perhaps, what about government intervention? Do you see any type of redistribution of wealth efforts by the government to ease this happening over the next few years?
I hope so, but I think if the government can invest wisely in not only higher education, but also the degree schools, like high schools, the community colleges, it will happen.
Well, here's one for Dr. Zhang. Dr. Zhang, there's one school of thought that I found very intriguing on this topic, and that's that people actually redefine work. So, you know, what is work to you? Do you still go in 5 days a week? Do you seek a job that's more creative? Do we let go of work altogether and try to transition it to the AIs in some utopian future? Do you see that as being any type of plausible outcome?
It's difficult for me to actually make that prediction. So I would think that the question that you raised regarding the companies moving the resources more into invest the AI technology, the robotics, and get people off the job. Okay, so for all those people, especially middle career transfer, is really a difficult thing to do, right? So you trained for the past 30 years to get the skills sharpened and to get that career stage, and now your job is gone and you need to retrain yourself and to learn some new stuff that kids are learning in the school very naturally, and you're after so many years of work and out of school, and all of a sudden they come back to pick up and new stuff. It's really a difficult, challenging task, and added that you have a family to feed and things like that, so make the life really tough. However, we need to recognize that the technology movement, the progress that forced the entire society to moving in certain directions. So if you don't really pick up those new knowledge, new skills, and find a new job, and I mean, it could be even tougher in the future, right? So for the university and the college to help those people. Okay? So that's why we are recently, a few years, we start to think that design courses, design programs that allow non-CS major and into the program and get some training, and then get out of the school with a new perspective to find a different type of job. Right? So that's why the certificates program comes in. And then we also designed a number of so-called bridging course for people who don't know anything about the program, no prior training in computer science. And they can get into the computer program at the master level, take 2 or 3 bridging courses, hopefully will quickly gain the required background, and then go on to learn the courses like data science, like data mining, AI, right? And getting involved in some kind of research. So then when they graduate, they become more familiar with the new type of tools, new type of job. Okay. So we are moving in that direction, and we are making more effort to try to streamline those courses so people can easily get into. However, I should caution that it's not an easy way to go through. Okay, so a lot of effort on the student side is needed because that's really drives the future. And if you expect an easy way to get into a different field, then it's a wrong perspective. Okay, so
That's
it's
good
just
input.
like get another degree in a different field. And people typically use 4 or 5 years to prepare to get into the graduate program. Now we are talking about maybe 1 semester, and then you get into a new program. So, but it's not that easy. But
It reminds me of
yeah.
the old Star Trek Borg dilemma that says you will be assimilated, right? So eventually you will be assimilated. You know, when you were saying that, I was thinking back what happened to me originally in my career. I started off in a cockpit in the airport, in an Air Force F-111, and I was a navigator. There was a guy on the right seat, and my life was replaced by a GPS I can now get on my phone. So my whole reason for existence in there was to basically get the plane from point A to point B. And then it went into a black box, and I'm not kidding. It's now something I can use on my phone outside. As everybody knows, you use your GPS in your car everywhere you go. You can use it hiking. It's on my it's on a watch. I mean, you can do it anywhere. So technology is going to keep changing things, but I wouldn't trade the GPS on my phone right now to go back and have my old job. And I think that's one of the things we have to bear in mind. So we know too that people will still be able to leverage AI, even if you're not as a user, just like the GPS. I mean, I leverage the GPS, even though I haven't done much with GPS in my whole career in terms of creating it or making it happen, right? So we have to look forward to that. And I think it's fair to say that creativity among humans and the exchange of ideas will be enabled or basically advanced through the addition of AI. Would you both agree with that this is going to be a big enabler to help people live better?
I agree because we are leveraging technologies and then they do make our lives better. Especially I study the privacy of mobile apps, as you mentioned, GPS, right? I want to question everyone. Have you ever read the privacy policy before you download the app? You probably don't, because you just sacrifice your privacy in exchange of the convenience, the technology the app is going to, the benefit the app is going to provide you, right? So do you know that mobile phone, your apps pretty much know everything about you? And then they know where you are, your real-time location, like a GPS, right? So even if you don't use the map apps, they still track where you are at real time. Also, they know, hey, who are your friends? And then even your friends' contact information. So when I studied more than thousands of apps, I read like thousands of their privacy policies. In the initial study we conducted in 2015 and 2016, we identified more than 400 violations in terms of, hey, they never told you they collect your location information, but they did at background. Why? Because consumers pay 0 cents and they need money. How? They collect the data and sell the data so they can make the business sustainable.
That wonderful Netflix documentary that came out, The Social Dilemma, and I know it was required watching for my students who were at Concordia and took my ethics course as well as my my Python course. But I got to tell you, it was a little bit frightening because one of the things, the key points, the key takeaways was that in the past, people or marketers would try to influence us to change our buying behaviors, to change what we wanted to buy. But now what they're doing with social media, backed by AI and the algorithms that can determine what we're looking at and basically suggest new things for us to look at, they're suggesting things that we look at to change who we are, so that we actually change us, so that we go out and buy the product that they are producing versus trying to just match us together. And that gets a little bit more dangerous. Would you agree with that assessment? Do you think Netflix, the documentary, was correct in that, Dr. Niu?
Oh, definitely. I cannot agree more. Like, I don't want to name a big high-tech company, right? Initially, they... Actually,
I don't even know where you're going, but I'll say Google.
Yeah, but Google actually is better. But that company basically asked the users agree that they will take information from your microphone. So that means they were listening your conversation at the background. And then later, that company did the same, something similar. They were, I think they received a big fine from FTC, like anti-fair trade. They, as you said, they collect your information and push ads to you, try to change you, try to change your behavior. That's, although we cannot say it's evil, but it is really bad.
Well, thank you. We have a few questions in chat that I want to give the folks in the chat room an opportunity to ask you two some questions as well. Right before we do that, I did want to point out this last slide that's up here that I have. Where is artificial intelligence successful today? And maybe to spur some questions. But basically, what we refer to in the center here, the AI sweet spot, is what AI can currently solve today and what sectors and functions are ripe for AI as well. The area on the left basically deals with optimization, for instance, doing traffic optimization or things like that, searching for things on computers, doing predictive analytics. In the yellow area, perception, understanding, movement, manipulation, AI can help in that, but it still has a long ways to go before it's really, really good at it. And here are some other areas that these are the ripe sectors and functions. It's on a scale with optimization, transformation, and reinvention. And just in a nutshell, you can see these different sectors here that are optimization means, like in agriculture, you can do it better. You can improve your farming, but you're not necessarily going to change what's happening. Transformation is changing that. You'll see, for instance, in finance, algorithms are being used to put stock traders way ahead of other stock traders when the AI can figure out what is your best investment. That gives you a huge competitive advantage. And then reinvention, that's along the lines here, what we talked about in marketing before, where they're trying to change us versus what we're doing. And Dr. Zhang, I know in cybersecurity, AI is just really, really hot. So let's real quickly turn this back over to Kristen, since she has access to the chat room. And Kristen, can you pull up a few questions there and see if they have questions in these areas or other areas for the panelists?
Sure. So one of our students, Alexandra, asked if we see AI replacing simple jobs in the future and society as a whole must shift, should we look to add Python basic data science into core education in middle school and high school?
I think so. I actually tried to ask my he was a middle schooler to learn Python, and then also tried Java. And then he preferred Python than Java because the simple syntax. So especially now the Jupyter Notebook, Dr. Zhang knows more. It's very easy to learn Python to run it to see the result. So Weining, can you comment on that too?
Oh, well, I have a mixed feeling, right? From my experience getting student from high school with some Java training, right? So one of the difficulty here is our high school, middle school teachers were not properly trained in computer science. And therefore, when they teach the school kids to learn the programming, some of the bad habit is actually getting into students' training. And so when they come to the university, although they have learned, for instance, Java in the high school and get an A in their Java courses, but when they come to the university and facing the problem that we gave to them to solve, they still have a lot of a problem. And it's more difficult to correct a bad habit than learn a fresh. Okay, so in one hand, it's good to push the training of data and data analysis into middle school and high school. On the other hand, it has to be very careful about how the courses are taught there. And we need a right people to teach right techniques and concepts. Okay. Otherwise, it may not actually do as what we expected.
And so there was a follow-up question to that if we continue to replace jobs with AI and it fails in the future, what happens when we have no one that can do those jobs that AI has replaced for some time? And this student asked because she was in the Navy. She saw a computer saw no issues in the system, but a visual inspection and noises indicated otherwise. So how can we trust AI if it can't adapt to correct issues or overcome incorrect algorithms that were entered by an imperfect human?
So I have this thing that, so basically you cannot allow AI to completely replace you, okay? So someone have to watch it, right? So it's just like autopilot in the airplane. If the pilot does not know how to fly and rely on the robot to do that, then you see a lot of some flight crashes, right? So I don't think at this stage, maybe not even next 10 years, AI is able to replace the human being in even the simple work. Okay? So someone has to know. I don't know if the company has the long vision, they will be prepared for this kind of problem to happen, and they should have the manpower to come in and to continue working without AI. Okay, so AI should be right now treated as an option, not a necessary replacement.
Right.
That's what I think.
So, so last question. I know at Concordia, we pride ourselves on teaching students to think critically. And there's one question here asking if you're aware of more initiatives, either at your school or Andy at Concordia, of trying to recruit more liberal arts graduates or undergraduates into computer science and data science.
Yes, I can address that. I have seen the big movement in the past few years, something called the CS Plus. So basically to allow students from a liberal arts background, from a social science background, even medical background, to learn more computer science. So I believe this trend will continue to grow. Like the programs Dr. Zhang and I developed, it definitely to part of this initiative to address the needs a lot of students without, as I said, computer science background want to gain computer science background and skills.
And I would dovetail on that. Basically what you said, Kristen, at Concordia, the school definitely has a requirement for everyone to take a basic computer science course. And one of the purposes of taking that course is to identify students or help them identify themselves as potential candidates to get more into other computer science topics. The single course that is offered at Concordia can be followed up with some deeper courses, say in Python or whatever, where we'll also cover this. And you also have some of the other, shall I say, the softer technology courses, such as IT ethics, that are available to students as well as electives. I think, though, that one of the things that you'll have to see in education is what was addressed earlier in our panel discussion, which is, or the presentation, that you have to have a broad education approach. And quite frankly, I think one of the things that we're going to have to do is not bring technology to liberal arts majors, but bring liberal arts majors to the technology. And you know, it's a flip side of looking at it, but the computers aren't really good right now at the creativity. And that's where those liberal arts majors are really going to find a home in the future.
Yeah, and also I see that in recent years, the computer science education now have two sides. Previously, we trained computer science students mainly for computer-related companies job, right? So develop, for instance, go to IBM and develop a new software, right? But more and more nowadays, the training will be given to some student tools and how to use computer programs and to help them to do other kind of job. Right? So, so the purpose is no longer just to train pure computer scientists that, and get into developing new programs, develop new computer hardware, software, right? But more on the use of computer existing systems to do the job, okay? And for that, we need the people to know other fields. Okay? It's actually people knowing, say, business, fine art, and any other fields come to the computer science. I do not really think that we intend to train them to become a computer scientist. We just train them to have computer science as a tool to do their own job. Okay? So that's the kind of I mean, movement in the computer science education. So that's where the new courses was designed and the new program is proposed.
Great. Well, thank you. We are out of time for today, but I wanted to say we are so grateful to all of you, Dr. Niu, Dr. Zhang, and Colonel Pennington, for your insights and for your wisdom today. And thank you all of you who've joined us today. I think we've answered most of the questions. If you still have any remaining questions that you need to ask, you can email me, Kristen Spindler at concordia.edu, and we will get those questions answered for you. So again, thank you, everybody. And if you're driving home, please be careful on the roads. Thanks.